Welcome to the Baseball Insiders on a beautiful Tuesday, holiday Monday. We are psyched to be here with you today to talk about the MLB playoffs, updates on the NL and ALCSs. The Dodgers win a blowout game one, but is that good? Judging by game two, history may not be on their side. Oddball stuff. Plus, the New York Yankees capture game one from the Cleveland Guardians, but still have yet to really put their stamp on this postseason, winning tight as hell tightrope games over and over again. Still, Subway World Series is alive. Technically, the Yankees and Mets have never been in the CS at the same time since 2000. That's also the only time it's ever happened, and we are motoring close to at least being able to talk about it, plus wrapping up the Padres and Tigers seasons, which have ended since the last time we spoke. And to take me all through it is Fansided's MLB insider, Robert Murray. Robert, how are you doing, dude?
I'm great, man. I'm a little thrown off by your new background setup, but we're getting through it. We're doing the thing. I'm a little sunburned because the sun was blasting into the Dodgers Stadium press box yesterday. But I'm here. I also have one of the most unique stories that I've ever encountered in terms of sports betting yesterday. I had a huge parlay going in the NFL, I should say, and I needed the Bills to win. And as I was going through airport security, the bet cashed, and my bag was getting searched, and I legit let out like an audible yelp when I found out that the Bills won. So that was pretty ideal. But we got lots of baseball stuff to talk about because these championship series are off and running. I was there in LA for the first two games. Now I'm back in Scottsdale, as you can see with the TVs behind me. Got lots of thoughts. I'm excited to be here with you, Adam. And how are you doing?
I am good. I am psyched to be here as well, and we do have a lot to talk about. The first rounds, including the wild card and the DS, as exciting as it gets. Watched the Yankees over here advance, and then got to sit back and watch some good low-pressure baseball. Dodgers and Padres facing off for Game 5. Also, the Guardians and Tigers facing off for Game 5 to determine the Yankees' opponent. That was nice. Now the Yankees are back in the mix. Back to stressful hours over here, but the championship series got off to slightly calmer starts than the division series, and I also think the DS is wrapped up a little bit silently. You know, Scooble sort of laying an egg in Cleveland. The Lane Thomas Grand Slam will live on in Cleveland lore, but I'm not sure if that's going to have as much resonance as some other moments from the earlier portions of the DS and the wild card. And the Yankees start game one yesterday against the Guardians. Edge past them. Not really a dominant performance. Same with, not quite the same on the Mets and Dodgers side. Certainly, we went to extremes in both of those games. We're going to talk about it. If you want to ask us questions and you want to talk to us between shows, you don't want to wait for the streams, head to the Discord channel. Join us there. We've got a lot planned for the offseason. Obviously, you can join us at the All-Star tier or the Rumor Mill tier. Rumor Mill just gets you access to chat with Robert and I. All-Star private streams on Zoom once a month. We're going to have to get one together by the end of October, and hoping to give you some other nice little nuggets at the end of the month, depending on the World Series matchup. So stay tuned for all that. Yes, as MLB Deadline News said, I had a parlay, but I missed I actually had a parlay that hinged on Greg Zuerlein not doinking 2 field goals and Aaron Rodgers not throwing Mike Williams under the bus after the game and bringing Devontae Adams on Pat McAfee. So you can imagine my face when I saw that all those completely improbable things that our sponsors don't even take into it. They're not even in the app. You have to write them in. When I saw that all those things actually did happen, I was devastated, but still. Also, join us on the Moonshot if you aren't subscribed. That is our weekly baseball email newsletter where the fan-sided MLB team, including the one and only Robert Murray, break down all the biggest stories in the big leagues with humor, insight, and behind-the-scenes info. If you're not getting that, what are you doing? Well, let's talk about the Dodgers and Mets first, because we head back to Queens tomorrow night. I think I'm going to try to head to the ballpark and shoot some fun stuff outside the game. So stay tuned for that. I will not be covering the game. I will not be inside the walls of the stadium. But let's see what we can do there. Give the people what they want, especially with 2 championship series in New York at the same time. Game 1, though, starts from a position where I don't think that these Mets have been expensive underdogs all year, paying a lot of money to people who aren't on the roster for all those payroll hawks out there. Big budget, and their payroll allows them to swallow up contracts like Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, but their most expensive players not on the team. The Dodgers are still behemoths. their big deals are all active, even if they're deferred. And they extend their pitching dominance in game one. 33 straight scoreless innings. That ties a record in the postseason, the 1966 Orioles after game one. And it was due in large part to Jack Flaherty, a pitcher who they did not even think they would have until right before the deadline. I know you have more insight on this. So talk a little bit about how Jack Flaherty becomes the one to make Dodgers history.
Yeah, Flaherty, he was one of the biggest names available at the trade deadline, and there were plenty of teams interested. The Dodgers were one of them. But the Dodgers, in the days leading up to the deadline, thought that Flaherty was heading elsewhere. Where exactly that was, we don't know. Obviously, there was reports that the Yankees were close to acquiring Flaherty at the deadline, but the medicals or something along those lines. It was a medical thing that prevented a deal, according to, I think, reports from Ken Rosenthal and Bob Nightingale. But it was, the Dodgers were very much under the impression that Flaherty was going elsewhere. And all of a sudden, about 40 minutes before the deadline, Scott Harris called Andrew Friedman and told him that Flaherty was still available, that they did not have a deal. And they quickly ended up working out a deal to send Flaherty to the Dodgers for two prospects. And Sweeney ended up debuting this year. And Lorenzo, I might be mispronouncing his name, looks like a nice player for Detroit as well. So it's, it was a good trade for both sides. Obviously, I don't think the Tigers necessarily saw this run coming that they ended up having this postseason, but it was a smart baseball move at the time. But for the Dodgers, it was a much needed upgrade in the rotation. And I really wonder where that rotation would be now if they didn't have Jack Flaherty, because one of my big takeaways from this series is, like, the game one, it was a very convincing win with Flaherty on the mound. And then game two, the bullpen game, they've had a lot of success with that throughout the year, but it showed yesterday just how volatile that can be, because it blew up in their face early and they were never really in that game whatsoever. They had chances, but never really ended up getting there. And if you look at the rest of their rotation, game three is going to be Walker Buehler, and he's struggled mightily this year. But the Dodgers believe his last 4 or so outings have shown signs of progress. So maybe we're going to start seeing a different side of Walker Buehler. I think in 2 of those outings, he's allowed 1 run or less. There are certainly signs there for sure, but he would also be lined up for a potential game 7 as well. And you want more of a sure thing, especially at this time of the year. And with Walker Buehler, you really don't know what you're going to get. Those other outings, obviously, you're going to have Yamamoto and you're going to have Flaherty. And then you would also probably have another built-in bullpen game in there as well. So to me, there's a lot of uncertainty and questions that I have with the Dodgers' rotation. Kind of makes me think that the Mets may have kind of turned the momentum in this series a little bit. But one thing that I learned very quickly yesterday, because I was in the Dodgers locker room post game yesterday. The Dodgers were not. They went out of their way to praise the Mets and just how good of a baseball team they were. And in a series like this, each team is going to exchange blows. That's just the nature of the beast. There's 4 teams left, and they're all going to be really, really good. But the Mets are for real. They're going to make this a series against the Dodgers. I would not be surprised if this ended up going 6 or even 7 games. And I truly don't know which way it's going to go, but it's making for some great baseball, even though the first 2 games may not have been the most exciting here in the world.
Yeah, I was surprised by a lot of the turns that this has taken. And look, the Dodgers survived the DS by bullpenning, by starting Ryan Brazier. I don't think anyone expected that to happen. And yet, the more times you roll that particular dice, the less likely it is to work the next time. The more times you open that bullpen gate, call in somebody else, whether it's Brazier or Landon Knack or what have you, the likelier that there are struggles that ensue. And look, the Dodgers aren't misguided to say that Buehler has been improving. Like VDSF notes, there was a lot of defensive mess behind him in that game in which he struggled in San Diego. The Miguel Rojas play, the indecision, can't get the out at second, can't get the out at first, Machado going out of, in the baseline, on the edges of the baseline, what have you, whatever you want me to say here. Smart play. Just like Brian Rocchio rounding first base yesterday and interfering with Tim Hill. Smart play. But Come on. Either way, but the Dodgers, yeah, they blow out in game one without Jack Flaherty, without Yamamoto being able to suddenly give them some semblance of length. Where are they? I'm not sure. The wild Sarah Langs fueled stat that gave me Mets optimism ahead of game two was that the Dodgers game one win, it's a top 6 biggest series opening shutout in postseason history. Technically, it's tied for 4th with 3 other shutouts. The number 1 being the Cubs in '84, winning 13-0 over the Padres. And all the other top 6 teams, the 5 other than the 2024 Dodgers, lost that series. And what do we get in game 2? We get the intentional walk of Francisco Lindor, leading to Mark Vientos taking it personally and taking a grand slam out of the yard. Now, I think LA acquitted themselves well as that game went on. They certainly rallied. They certainly made it tight. They didn't even let Edwin Diaz breathe in the 9th. But still, here are the Mets. If you were to tell a Mets fan that they took both on the road in LA, they would not believe you. No. Forget the score of game 1. They did what they had to do in these 2 road games, and now they come back home to Citi Field. Andrew asking if I get press access. I'm not in the BBWAA. Wish I was. That's the Mets' decision. Plus, what I do, I want to be outside. I want to be taking videos of the fans. I don't want to be in the press box, videoing fans from 300 feet away. I got plans, but that is going to be an exciting game and potentially a pivot point in the series. And I think if you're a Mets fan, what hasn't worked so far this series? Starting Kodai Senga, sort of an odd gambit, trying to squeeze him in. It hasn't worked twice. David Peterson came in and shut down the Phillies, but the Dodgers were not fooled. Outside of taking a chance on Senga, pretty much every button the Mets have pressed for the last month has resulted in either a wire-to-wire win or a magical moment. And if you're headed home 1-1, that's pretty much the best you could hope for in this series.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I don't think winning both of those games in LA to start the series was a really realistic thought, but getting splitting it in the first 2 games, I think was about as good of a result as you could have possibly hoped for. And the thing that I talk to people around the league, and you can even sense it with the Mets too, is like they constantly believe in themselves, and they're one of the more resilient teams that I can recall seeing up close. And even despite, game 1, it was kind of clear that it was over, but the way that they can bounce back, whether it's coming back late or coming back late after a deficit, or even bouncing back the next day, they have an ability to flush things and just overcome the odds, for lack of a better phrase. It's just a really impressive trait, and I think it speaks to the job that Carlos Mendoza has done instilling that mentality in that locker room, and people around the Mets just praise the job that that he's done with them. And you even talked to Francisco Lindor. I was talking to him when the Mets were in Milwaukee, and I asked him, I was like, how exactly did you guys become like this? How did this resilience come to be? And he said there came a point during the season where they had met as a team, and they were like, if we don't fix this now, it's gonna end up being too late. And all of a sudden, from that moment on, it's just they've been on a run here. It's been pitching, it's been defense, it's been hitters stepping up. It's been an entire team effort, and we've seen it during this run here. They beat the Braves, they beat the Brewers. They ended up winning the last series, and now they're 1-1 going into games 3, 4, and 5 in New York. It's a really impressive run here, and I'm not convinced it's over. I think they have a very real shot of winning this. And if they win 2 of 3 at home, that puts a lot of pressure on the Dodgers going back to LA. I'm very fascinated to see how this one plays out.
I will concur that it is one of the most resilient teams, if not the most resilient team that I have seen in a number of years. You can ascribe it to Mendoza, you can ascribe it to Lindor, the rest of the roster, what have you, but they do not let anything get them down, which leads me into everybody in New York is tripping around this. Nobody wants to say the words before it's, a little bit too soon. But again, 2 New York teams in the championship series, both in the Final Four. Who is more likely to hold up their end of the bargain here and get to the Fall Classic and give the city what they're aching for on both sides of the bridge? Because the Yankees do take game 1 against the Guardians after dispatching the Royals in 4. They're playing the AL Central. They are playing the AL Central tight. The Guardians have a 4-man nasty bullpen. None of them pitched in game 1. All will be available for game 2 and beyond, presumably with a nice little breather. Giancarlo Stanton has been the Yankees' entire offense. No hits with runners in scoring position in the game 1 win. Not just a couple and they needed more. I'm talking about literally 0. 0 for 7. Carlos Rodon was nails. He shut a lot of folks up. And the Guardians were 29-11 against left-handers this year. Roster had a 123 WRC plus. Odds said you shouldn't have started Rodon, but the gut won out over the stats in the matchup, and Rodon was dominant, and that's his best start as a Yankee, probably. So the Yankees are in the catbird seat. They are leading that series with Garrett Cole and Clark Schmidt to go in games 2 and 3, but they have yet to really have a convincing win this entire postseason. So who's more likely to make it to the World Series and do their part in getting New York the matchup they desire, the Yankees or the Mets?
It's a great question. I'm gonna go with the Yankees because I think their matchup is a little bit easier than what the Mets currently have. And that's not a slight on the Guardians by any means. What they've done this season, especially with their bullpen and navigate, like in it's been a historically great bullpen, and they've ridden that throughout the entire year here. But I think the Dodgers present a lot more challenges for the Mets than the Guardians do for the Yankees. And I mean, you look at the Dodgers' roster. I mean, I think that's enough said. I mean, it's one of the most talented rosters in baseball history, especially on offense. The pitching side, as we talked about earlier, has got plenty of questions. Don't get me wrong, but their offense can mask a lot of different things with the pitching. But I think the Yankees, I know it's been Giancarlo Stanton who's hang on. Time out. Drew, stop it. No, I'm being totally real. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But I think the Yankees, Giancarlo Stanton's been driving their offense. He's been driving the bus. But eventually Aaron Judge and that lineup or the rest of that lineup is going to wake up. And I think they're going to be able to get past the Guardians easier than I think that the Mets will with the Dodgers. But ultimately, I don't know. Like, nobody knows what to expect with both of these series. I kind of do feel like this could be a Mets versus Yankees World Series, which that would be epic. I mean, that's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of deal right there. So I'd be very fascinated to see how that one would play out. I've given the Mets plenty of credit, Drew. I've given them loads of credit. I've talked about it.
I think you just picked them.
I literally just picked them. So I am giving them plenty of credit, but that's what I'm thinking. Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm feeling it a little bit too. I mean, look, I see the Mets in 5s in the chat. I do not think the Mets are going to win this series in 5. But I wouldn't bet against the Mets taking 1 of 2 in Los Angeles and finishing this in LA. I think the Mets go to LA with a 3-2 lead and have to fight it out in the remaining 2 games in Los Angeles. But I'm not betting against them as of now. I would favor the Yankees in the CS with trepidation. It is not a Mickey Mouse series in the way that it's being described in the comment section. These are the top 2 teams in the American League this year, and anyone who's watched this Yankees team this year knows that they are more talented than most of their opponents and get out baseballed by most of their opponents, as Joel Sherman likes to say. He keeps track of the Yankees' unbaseball-y plays. There are plenty per game. Guys not taking the extra base, weird defensive plays, weird positioning, bad hitting with runners in scoring position, what have you. There are always, look at the first inning yesterday. Alex Cobb on the ropes, first and second, nobody out. Aaron Judge strikes out. Austin Wells can't get the job done. Stanton, long fly ball. Very unproductive. The Yankees have not blown the doors off anybody yet. Yes, they faced Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha and Alex Cobb and the middle portion of the Guardians bullpen yesterday. If I'm going to really just emphatically say the Yankees are going to the World Series and they are giving Fox what they want, going to need to see one game where Clay Holmes and Luke Weaver don't pitch and the Yankees win 10-3. I'm just going to need to see it. I think there's a good chance they get past the CS, but I think if they do, I wouldn't favor them in the World Series against either of these opponents.
Nope.
And I think a lot of folks who have not watched the Yankees all year might be surprised by that. Garrett Cole also, the highest ERA Garrett Cole has against any team, the New York Mets, a talking point that we thought we were going to be able to let die in the middle of the summer after the Subway Series and the regular season was over. Now I got to resurrect it because he does not pitch well against the Mets in his career. And the Mets are playing better than the Mets have in years right now. So I do think right now, if you ask me to pick, I would pick the Yankees moving on to the World Series, but I would pick either the Mets or the Dodgers to beat them if that was to occur.
No, I totally agree with you. And I think both the Dodgers and Mets are better than the Yankees. I don't think that's an exaggeration by any means, not like at all. And the Mets, to me, like to give them even more credit, despite some others' beliefs, they are the hottest team in baseball right now. They've been awesome. They've gotten through, I mean, as I've talked about before, the Braves, the Brewers, the Phillies, and now they're battling the Dodgers. And those are three of the elite teams in the National League. And the fact that they've done that in a series or in a season that was supposed to be kind of a lost season, like Max Scherzer even said that last year when he got traded, is that that the Mets viewed the 2024 season as kind of a rebuilding year. And now here they are 3 games away from advancing to the World Series. That is a remarkable run. And if this is what is going to happen under the first year of David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza, I would be incredibly optimistic about what's to come in the future of the New York Mets, because we got to see what Stearns ended up doing when he was with Milwaukee with a very limited budget. But now he's got Steve Cohen funding the payroll, and we all know how Uncle Steve loves to fund that team. He's willing to spend more than any other owner. If he wants a player, he will go out and get it. And Billy Upler, like his hands are all over this roster for sure. But Stearns has a more measured approach. And it's more, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it's really impressive what he's done. And I fully expect the Mets, this is going to be their first of many years of contending under the Stearns and Mendoza partnership there.
I would agree. I think he's pressing. It's bizarre. The buttons that he's pressed weren't even on the panel at the start of the season. Like Jose, congrats on pressing the Jose Iglesias button. Like it takes creativity at the edges and the margins of the roster to get where the Mets are today. And Stearns deserves all the credit in the world. Now, we will talk Padres and Tigers because the two teams that have left us since the last time we did a podcast. And I see Drew in the comments asking about, hey, DeVries and Salas in 2025. I think that is certainly part of the Padres 2025 plan, and it's going to be a question that's going to hang over them. Certainly, I didn't want to do the Padres in the eliminated team series so soon. Unfortunately, we are forced to. I assume we're advocating for Kyle Higashioka to get Juan Soto's money. But beyond that, what else should we be expecting from the Padres headed into another offseason where I don't think you can rule a single move out?
No, and with AJ Preller, you can always expect the Padres to be aggressive. And I think one of the first orders of business for the Padres is going to be adding some starting pitching help, especially with Joe Musgrove undergoing Tommy John surgery. They're going to want to end up getting some certainty there in that rotation. I also think you got to figure out what you want to do with Luis Arraez. There's obviously he wants to stay in San Diego. Do they keep him? Do they trade him? What exactly does that look like for the Padres? I also think a Jackson Merrill extension is going to be something that they do discuss and try to figure out. As Dennis Lynn reported, there was conversations earlier in the year regarding a Merrill extension, but that being said, nothing ever advanced. Nothing was ever close. It was more preliminary than anything. But the fact that the Padres waited, it's going to cost them a lot more. And we're talking probably around the $200 million mark is what I'm thinking. And that is a huge cost, especially with how much they've spent on that roster previously. So I'm curious to see exactly if they have the flexibility to do it. But Merrill, who I think is likely going to win the Rookie of the Year, is a player that you want to build around, and extending him now, I think would be a really smart move. They should have done it before the season started, but they waited, and it's going to possibly add, well, okay, I can take out the word possibly. It is definitely going to add a lot more to what that payout would have been. So I think those are the three real things. that the Padres are going to have to do. But another one that we're going to have to watch as well is exactly how much Preller has to spend this offseason. Because last year, you got to really hear about how limited he was. And there was like those same kind of whispers were heard at the deadline as well. There was a little bit more flexibility at the deadline than there was in the offseason. But if he has any sort of flexibility, you can expect them to be aggressive. And yeah, with Preller, I wouldn't rule out anything. Well, almost anything. But one thing I know for sure is he will be aggressive out there. That I feel very confident in.
Yeah, I feel like you can rule out Juan Soto, but maybe that's the only thing that you can rule out.
I think that's about right. Yeah.
Well, we are obviously we're going to follow the Padres very closely this offseason. We have no intention of stopping that. They're, as always, going to be one of the most pivotal teams involved. But hey, the Tigers showed up earlier than anybody expected. They have joined this series as well, dropping Game 5 on the road to the Gardos. Scott Harris indicated on Monday Javi Baez will be back in some capacity. That was always going to be difficult to navigate, but it still sort of stings to hear it, considering how much they woke up when he disappeared this season and how many young stars they do have to accommodate. Now, the Tigers the comments are correct again here. How quickly a rebuild can happen when the young talent shows up quickly. Mets, Royals, Tigers, and now the Tigers have always said they didn't hire AJ Hinch just to steward a bunch of young kids along and string along a lengthy rebuild. They hired AJ Hinch to spend when they had the authority and the capacity to do so. Authority based on talent on the field. Like, are the players showing us that they're ready for us to spend and take the next step? Okay, great. Well, here they are. They showed it pretty loudly this season and into October. What do you expect from the Tigers this offseason?
Yeah, I expect the Tigers. I don't think they're going to be ultimately like super aggressive in free agency. I think Scott Harris prefers to build his team more organically and not go out and spend in free agency. But I do expect them to make some outside additions, and I think a right-handed bat is going to be their first order of business. I think that is going to be one of their biggest priorities, if not the biggest. You also look at like what exactly are they going to do with Spencer Torkelson, because he's had a pretty up and down year, or up and down start to his career, I should say. And they viewed him as a long-term building block, but there's questions about that now. And is he guaranteed a starting position come opening day? Are they going to add somebody from the outside? I think those are all things that are going to be in play right now. I would also there's been plenty of questions about Javi Baez, but they do view like Baez as there's a role in the team for him, so I would expect him to stay. I think the Alex Bregman question is going to be asked plenty this year, or especially this offseason. The Tigers could use a star player like that. Obviously, he's got plenty of connections to AJ Hinch from their time in Houston. Could that be a reunion that the Tigers explore? We'll see. I would not rule them exploring that out by any means. And I'm glad MLB Deadline News ended up saying this, because Skubal, he is ridiculous. He is the best pitcher in baseball at this point. He is every bit as dominant as the Tigers could have ever imagined. The Tigers made it abundantly clear at the deadline that they were not going to move Skubal. Teams checked in. They tried. Can't blame them, but it got absolutely nowhere. I would expect that to be the case now, because if, let's say you're the Tigers and you trade Skubal in the offseason coming off of this postseason run, this unexpected postseason run, what kind of message does that send to your fan base? What kind of message would that send to the players? What kind of message would that even send to the coaching staff? To me, that's a move you cannot make. I don't expect the Tigers to make that, and I would absolutely 100% expect Skubal to be the Tigers' opening day starter next season, and I feel very confident that answer is going to remain the same the entire offseason. So those are the things that I view as the big key parts of this Tigers offseason as of right now.
Very thankful they did not trade Skubal at the deadline. I don't think they should have entertained it. Seems like they didn't, and it paid off sooner than anyone expected. And no, they're not going to trade him this offseason either. That is a kick to the groin that they will not be delivering to their fan base. Well, Robert, anything else in the notebook? Anything from Mets Dodgers? Anything else you want to get off your chest before we sign off and come back on Thursday?
I'll tease it. There was some extension talks during the season for some star players that were were had. Nothing got done, obviously, but I'm trying to report it. I wouldn't be surprised if those talks ended up getting rekindled in the offseason. Maybe something gets done, but it's 3 players, 3 star players, who teams tried to extend, but nothing ended up getting done. So that is what I've got. Maybe I can drop it on the next show. I'm still trying to get the green light, trying to get it fully confirmed, but that is one of the things that I'm working on right now.
7 years, $240 million for Tommy Pham. You heard it here first. No, we will. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, I will say, Doc, that is not the answer. MLB deadline news: it is an Adam Weinrib extension. He is getting a massive contract extension. Sources say.
I am willing to talk if anybody wants to see me. They're able to. I'm obviously open to, this is a crazy thing to say, but I'm obviously open to making more money. So please,
Wow.
I'm a loyal guy. Come talk to me. Let's talk loyalty. Let's get a burger. Red Hook Tavern is delicious. I'm not buying. You're buying. And we'll talk it out. Well, let's see. Yeah, let's see if we can break my extension on Thursday's show. Let's see what I get at Citi Field tomorrow. Let's see if the New York Yankees are able to actually put their stamp on this series against the Guardians, or if they're going to continue playing the tightest games of all time until a winner is decided. I'm not sure, but I am sure that I am Adam Weinrib. And we'll see you again here on the Baseball Insiders on Thursday afternoon, 3:30 Eastern, again to wrap up some additional action from Tuesday and Wednesday night. I have news to break, actually. Thursday is my birthday. So
whoa.
It's a birthday show. If anybody wanted to show up in the chat and say happy birthday, you would get immediately banned. So keep that in mind. No, you would not. You'd probably get on the stream, actually.
Yeah, I would almost guarantee it. But Adam, I'm going to wish you a happy early birthday. So I can be the first one to wish you a happy early birthday. And if anyone else did, that doesn't count. No. I want to be first.
Yep.
And one thing I am sure about is that it seems like Drew is definitely rooting against the Dodgers.
Does, sure does, yeah.
Yeah, holy cow. I don't know if I've ever seen more Dodgers hate in my entire life, but good job, Drew. And we will see everyone back here on Thursday when we have some more results from these postseason games. But Adam, I appreciate you. Everyone in the comments, I appreciate you. Joanne, our lovely producer, we appreciate you. See everyone here on Thursday.
We love it. See everybody right back here at 3:30 Eastern, Thursday afternoon. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody.